Hello everyone, happy Monday. Today we're going to be doing these simple, I've got a few tips for you on how to make painting daffodils a little easier. We're going to start with a couple of Caran d'Ache watercolor pencils, and I'm going to we'll do one forward facing daffodil just to keep it simple. So I like to start with a circle. And the reason I'm using the watercolor pencils is because if you go pretty lightly, I mean, you can go dark with them, but I like to go really lightly, and then this yellow pretty much disappears into your petal, but it gives you a good guideline because it's so easy. These petals look so wonky sometimes if you don't have a little bit of a guide, especially when you're first learning to paint them. So I do the X, this should be the middle, the X with the line straight up and down with a squashed X through it. And that gives me a nice guideline to do this. Next, what I do is I mix some very light yellow, and I mean very light. The second problem that I have had doing daffodils is I start way too dark, and they're such a delicate petal. So mix yourself up a very light yellow. Tea, definitely, not coffee, not cream mixture. There we go. And the third thing that I would say is don't start with this top petal. I start with the petals on either side, and you put your tip at the end of where your petal goes, and I go all the way into the center of here. It is a little bit harder to activate these colors. You have to kind of scrub at them a little bit, so you're able to go through those and this isn't gonna bloom out as if you were using regular watercolor on a brush. So then I do the one on the other side of the middle, and this one should have been a little fatter. You have a little time to work with it. And then I do the bottom one. Put your tip at the end of your pencil mark and make a nice fat petal that meets in the middle here. Then you do the same thing. Now I do the top petal. I just seem to be able to tuck it in better. It looks better. When I do the top one first, I can never get, it's like shorter than the other ones. It just doesn't look right. But when I do the two side petals, it ends up looking more like a real daffodil. Then I do the next three petals. There we go. And this one's a little funky. Pull that. All right, nice. So now what we can do is take the darker orange. I mix up darker orange, even a little, well, let me get this red over here. Get a real dark orange for the very middle, and then even a lighter orange here. And wipe out, oh, I splattered. I take it and I put it right in the middle here, not with a super wet brush. It's got to be wet enough for it to run though. And I do this little, the dot in the middle, there we go. It's got to be a little wet to travel. Let me see, I put a little too much of the rust in there. Put a little bit of orange in the middle. It's gonna push it out a little. Nice. And I'm gonna let that spread a little bit. Now it looks like it's gonna be okay and not go too far. Next, we will do a sideways facing one right here, and I'll do it where I made this little orange mistake, probably a good spot. When I do a sideways facing one, I do the little call it like a megaphone is what it looks like. This thing that's coming out of the daffodil. And it looks just like a little, kind of like a witch's hat sideways. And then you have your same circle here. Okay, this is the middle. Let's draw a circle around here with this. So there's your guideline circle, even a little bit further out. And you're going to have the same X through this, with this coming off the side. So I'm not going to, you know what, I'm not going to draw it. I'm just going to follow around where I have these petals. Here's the first one. Bring it into the middle. And the next one. And the third. And then there's one here. And one here. There's one back here. Can't really see much of it, but that's okay. So there's your little sideways facing one with, let me go like this, put this here. And I don't want it to spread all into my flower, so I'm just gonna kind of go like this with the orange. And it's kind of a lighter, I don't want it super dark in there. I want it a little lighter in here. We'll come back. There we go. Okay, we'll let that sit. That is still even a little dark. You can come in, if you did it too dark, and with a clean, damp brush, pull these back out of here. But that's a nice little sideways shape. And again, you can come in here. It will run a little, but not a lot. Let's get the bottom of this. There we go. Yeah, you can even pull out your pencil stuff with. All right, so that actually ran almost perfectly. It's not actually too wet. Like I said, you can go over these. You can go over the watercolor and it's not going to, the pencils are not going to run if it's not soaking wet as much as going into it with paint and water. Isn't that nice? I love the way that looks. You put the nice little dark line in there and it just all of a sudden looks like a beautiful little daffodil. And I'm going to do one more, a dark drop in the middle, because you've got a little center in there. It actually looks a little more green. Let me see if adding some green on top of that is not going to mess that up. There's a little center in there. There we go. Don't want it to scream too much green. Okay, so there's that and a sideways one. And now we're going to take and do, it was a little dirty, just the pretty ones that are not open yet. I'm just going to take your brush. It's just like a pretty little closed daffodil. Let me see. Let me put a little, maybe a little dark yellow around the base here while this is still wet. Let's see. That'll kind of run out a little bit. Do a few little detail-ish lines here so it's not, that's looking good. Okay, and now we're going to come in with the greens, and that's a nice green. Maybe add a little yellow to this to start with a nice light green. And the daffodil stems are not skinny. They are, do I want this one to come in here or here? Maybe here. I don't want to touch this right now or it's going to run into my flower. I just want to get as close as I can. There we go. And let's come up here. Maybe we'll start, make sure your brush is nice and wet when you come down and do this, or you run out. And I don't mind touching that one because I like to have a little bit of green at the bottom. Okay, and so we're gonna come in and do some real pretty, let me start with an even a light, come up and then really push it. See, and that was where should have been a little more wet. Push your brush, bring it like this. Let's bring one up here. And definitely and then you're going to have all the little daffodils coming up like they are right now. There we go. Now let's add some of this darker green. It's going to run a little, but let's deepen this because the dandelion, the daffodil will cause a little bit of shade under there. It'll be a little darker underneath. And while these are wet, let's just kind of lightly run a little bit darker color in there. There we go. And under here, and let's do this. Keep that. There we go. And you can even come in with it a little darker. I don't really like that. That's kind of a dirty green, like an olive green. I don't think I like that either. So we'll stick with this. Maybe add a little blue into it. Let's do a little bit of this. That's gonna give it a little more interest as, oh, or a lot more. You can always kind of, there. Boop. Hate it when I go in super dark. It's like you go from 0 to 100 a little too quickly. All right, pull that off of there. Boop. Here, let's go under here a little bit. Like this. There we go. Okay, and these shouldn't stop just like that. Let's kind of drag these out a little. And let's make this a little fatter. There. Good. Boop. Now, I'm gonna go a little bit darker along here. And a little bit darker. All right, now the last thing, I'm liking that. I think I want to add just a touch of orange in here to darken this. and it's dry, but you can come in with a little bit of orange, wipe it off, and just kind of bring it up like this. I probably should have waited till it was a little completely dry, but that's okay. Drop a little more orange in here. And sometimes it looks nice. I wonder if I should take a tiny brush and just do some little very light green, and I mean very light green lines coming up. Not a lot, because you'll easily overpower this. That one's going the wrong way. Go like this, and like that. And you can even do some add a little bit, touch of touch dark green under there. There. Gives it a little bit of texture, or there. And with the dark green, I'm not very happy with this. I want to do an even bluer. Let's see what I can mix here. That's a little bit darker, maybe even like a phthalo. There we go. All right, so when you're painting greens, you don't want them all to be one color, which is why I started out with the lighter yellowy green, and then I'm just playing around trying to drop in bluer greens versus yellow greens. It definitely gives your greenery much more interest when you do that. And so you just, as you're painting your daffodil, you can put your greenery where you want. It adds so much direction to the painting and beauty to the flowers. And so I'm kind of trying to go into these spots, the underside of the leaves that are flopped over, and underneath the flower, where there would be some shade from the flower, making it appear darker. The stems are generally a little bit darker when they're down underneath the flower. So just play around with your greenery and add some bluer greens. You can even add a little purple into your green, but you can make it look very interesting. And I generally struggle with this just a little bit, but play around with it and put your greenery in a nice, pleasing way that you like it. Let's kind of re-emphasize this a little bit. Go over this. I'm going to leave that. I'm liking the way that looks, and we can just come in with a little. And if you want to, you can actually come over, and if you want to add yet a little more detail, that's nice. There. Do we want to splatter? Yes, we want to splatter. Let's splatter some. Okay. Maybe even a little more of this. Oh, why did I do that? There we go. Not quite sure why I messed that up so badly, but we're gonna go like this. You know, they say you can't fix things in watercolor, and you can't fix everything, but you can kind of come back in and all right, so that's today's demonstration of daffodils. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did like it, please click like and subscribe, as that helps share my channel with everyone. And if you go to the link in the link below, you will get a free digital download of this daffodil painting. So have a wonderful day and happy spring.